Eric kind of going over, the commission work that he does. He does a lot of airbrushing, and why he likes to airbrush, and then kind of how he goes through it. And if you see this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you want to continue to follow us.
Cool. And the break won't be super long because we've got 9 viewers, so we might as well keep it going. So
Okay.
we'll just flip right over.
All right. So then we're going to go to Eric. And Eric, kind of just tell us, one, how you got into airbrushing, and then why you like it, and then 2, kind of talk us through your process.
So I got into airbrushing, maybe 8-9 years ago. I ended up starting out with a Badger Crescendo. It was absolutely terrible airbrush. It was super fat. It didn't sit in your hand right, but it blew paint, so I thought it was sweet, but it spattered. It took me a couple months to figure out what I was doing, how to appropriately use an airbrush, realizing that the airbrush necessarily isn't even as important as the compressor. So if one of my biggest things is you're better off spending more money on a compressor over spending more money on a airbrush. So
why is that?
So the problem with a lot of the compressors is they store water, and so because that's what compressed air does, is it starts heating up, it breaks down, you get your water into it, your water trap can fill, or it might not work the way you want it to work. Being able to regulate your air more than just your standard portable air compressor, the one that you just plug in the wall and turn it on, those things overheat, they start kicking out more water, the airflow isn't the same, so it's more important to have a quality compressor that blows air appropriately more than something that blows paint steadily, because you can make the airbrush blow paint however you want it to blow paint, but you can't change the compressor and how it blows air.
How would I know the difference between a crap air compressor and a good one?
So a lot of the better ones, it's kind of interesting because, I mean, you can go to your standard hardware store, you can find any compressor for a couple $100. I actually got my compressor I have one from Lowe's and I have one from Harbor Freight, and I actually use the Harbor Freight one more, just because it's a little bit smaller and a little bit quieter. It's a 3-pound pancake. I think it was $60. And it was refurbished, so something went wrong with it before. They fix it, they put it up on their eBay site, and I just bought it just to try it, and that's my go-to compressor. It has a built-in, it has 4 connectors for the hoses. Each can be regulated at different PSI, which helps. So if, like in my process, I'm constantly having multiple airbrushes set up at once. So when I sit down, I'll have 3 or 4 paints down and do one, put that brush down, grab the next one, brush out that, and keep going until my process is done. So I think it's a lot better to have multiple holsters for inputs for your air. That way you can do some thin lines, do your bulk painting, do your base coat, do your highlights. It makes it easy. That way you're not swapping everything out. I think that's more tedious than I don't have to clean more than once when I sit down. More people or more of the professionals that you watch will sit down and change out their paint or change their brushes out multiple times, and that to me is just tedious.
To add into that, the quick release, I use those. So I have like 3 airbrushes, and then I have just the quick releases. I only have 1 compressor, but I just go pop, pop, pop.
Yeah, the quick releases work great too. I definitely, that's where I started originally. But now that I have this setup where like my desk is legitimately 8 foot long and I've got 6 different airbrushes set up at one time. And so I have my little cheap Harbor Freight airbrushes that are $20 that I blow on my base coats with. I've got the Renegade version 2 from Badger. I've got an Iwata. I've got a Sotar 2020. I've got a lot of airbrushes, but it just depends on what kind of work I'm doing on which airbrush I grab. So each of them have different size needles that they can add into. So you get your 0.2 to 0.5 needles. They just blow different air, blow different cones out. It's just what you do.
So, other than the airbrush itself, is there any like equipment I would need if I wanted to get into airbrushing? Like you said, you had an 8-foot table. Like, do I need some sort of exhaust system or like
Uh,
air or whatever?
it's wise to. My room is big enough where I don't do that. The only time I ever have any kind of fan or window open is when I'm airbrushing glazes, because glazes go everywhere. And the first time I found that out, I was actually airbrushing in my living room, and I was working on corn. It was bloodletters, and got the reds done. Went to put a glaze on them so the paints ended up blending better. And once I got done, I looked up, and my whole room was red. Like there was dust particles everywhere of red glazed paint. I was going, all right, well now I know what I'm not supposed to be breathing in. So yeah, there's a little learning experience with that.
And you're
but,
still married?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it didn't get on anything, so it dries in the air, but it just stays in the air. So since it's so light, so I mean, it vacuum up, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I remember when we first moved into this house, we have like this cream color carpet, and I was using those rust powders. And I don't know why I didn't think about because I was just dabbing it on, and then I would just dab a little bit on with a brush. And when I got done, I looked down, and it was rust in my cream colored carpet. And that did, because the way you apply it is you put down alcohol. You got to make your model wet, right? So cleaning it that way wasn't going to help. Vacuuming it did. I don't remember how I got it up, but my wife was not impressed.
No, the powders can be dangerous.
Yeah.
That's for sure. but yeah, I mean, I do different jobs throughout the year. I just recently finished Raven Guard Army towards the beginning of the year. Then I've been working on our Adepticon stuff from there. We're doing Idaken Dark Eldar, so it's been fishes and different things and chariots and all that. So it's been a process. I think me personally, I like to, when I airbrush in pieces. I can't stand when a model's put together just because you can't airbrush it properly. I do a lot of stencil work, so you can't lay stencils down if there's other things in the way. So a lot of my stuff is done in pieces, so that way I can get into the nooks and crannies.
I think in the pre-show you were showing us some of the steps, how you paint with an airbrush.
Yeah. So I've got a couple different things here. So I've got the one of the Titans or the Knights I'm working on is the Castellan Knight. So doing the pre-shading is you're highlighting it basically just along the edges. That basically gives you your shadows. So it looks a little goofy, but as it works out, you end up adding your colors to it, and the shadings will stay in there as well. So you're not having to shadow it afterwards, because that's when things start looking weird and not as natural.
Do you always use brown as the shade, or is that?
It depends on the colors. So browns work great for yellows, oranges, tans. Those are the colors that I normally go with brown with. Reds I normally go with purple, just because once you spray a red over a purple, it makes it a really rich dark purple. Blues I can do greens. It depends. So it's kind of a lot of playing around with it. I think it's taken me several years to learn how to blend correctly and to make things look, the way it's supposed to when it's finished.
So we had a great question come in from chat. Do you recommend, if anybody was going to go into painting with an airbrush, is there a starter kit, or where would you start if you didn't know anything about airbrushing?
So there are tons of videos online as far as people who do it professionally. I mean, more than I do. This is more of a little side job that I just enjoy. Harbor Freight has a really cheap starter kit. You get an airbrush and compressor, and I believe they go on sale at least once, if not twice a month. You can get them down to like $89, and then you can get a 2-year warranty on them for 2 years. So if anything breaks, you get a whole new airbrush kit. And then, so that's kind of how I use my base coating. So it's a brush I don't really keep track or take care of, because I'll just blow it, paint all over the place, and then when it breaks, I take it back, spend $20, and I get a new one, and I get a new 2-year warranty. So, kind of playing the system that way. But I mean, a lot of the Badger airbrushes are really good to start with, and they have the portable airbrushes as well, or the portable compressors, which is great. Those are probably what you really want to start with. It's just something small, something you can just blow paint with and just practice.
There's a company out there that makes an airbrush that has a pistol grip and everything's magnetized on it. I cannot think of what they are. Yes. What do you think of those airbrushes?
I haven't played with one yet. One of the people who run the Michigan GT swears by it. That's his go-to airbrush. I feel that it would be a lot more comfortable. I'm kind of stuck in my way with the way I'm painting right now, so I haven't went out and bought the new one. But yeah, Greg's airbrushes are really good. I just personally have not played with one.
Yeah.
But the problem with the trigger ones are not the trigger and not the pistol. The pistol grips are a lot more comfortable because it's just more natural. So when you're cranking your finger back all day long, it starts to hurt your wrist, your forearm. I mean, it's a workout. So,
do you feel like you get better control out of that one, or do you think you get better control out of the pistol?
I think it'd be about the same. Okay. I think a lot of it has to do with practice and just trying things out and what you like. So it's the same way with paints. I mean, paints are to each your own. You've got your Citadel, you've got P3, you got Vallejo, Scale 45, Green Stuff World. I mean, there's so many different paints out there. You just got to find what you like, and they're all good paints. I don't think I found one that I don't like blowing through my airbrush besides Vallejo Liquid Gold, because that's an alcohol-based paint. That's just terrible to blow through an airbrush.
So back to the technique part of it. So when you get to, I personally, and I know other people have always just like, yeah, I got an airbrush and I just use it to base coat. Now it looks like you go beyond base coating with yours, and at what point do you stop using the airbrush and have to get the actual brush out? And then are there times you can go back to the airbrush? Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends on the model itself and what the outcome that you're looking for to have on that model. There are several times where, I don't know if I have a piece in here. So the Nautilus crown. So this was all airbrushed and started out with the gold and then worked my way through. Then did all the rivets. I don't know if I can pull in here to make it work right here. But the rivets themselves are all individually painted. And then the chains and the skulls. And then after that was all done, I went back and airbrushed in all the hieroglyphics, and then went back in again with a paintbrush to make them glow. So you work back and forth all the time with them.
Okay. Now, do you think the reason people base coat more, so like again, the more novice people will base coat, like myself, more, because what holds me up is the cleaning part of it. It's just such a tedious task of that. Do you think that's what holds up a lot of people to just do base coating, or is it like a lack of understanding of what the brush is?
I think it's a lack of understanding what the brush can do and what it's capable of doing. So like the Sotar 2020 that I have, I can write script in it. So I can get it to a point where it looks like I'm writing in a needlepoint. I don't do it often just because that's a process where you have to clean the brush nonstop, because there's so much air and so little paint coming out that it clogs a lot. So that makes it tedious on that point. But yeah, I mean, if you thin your paints right, you can go all day without having to clean an airbrush, besides dipping it in some water and you're good to go.
So, Brandon or Dan, do you guys have any experience with airbrushing? Like, what are you guys' thoughts on it?
I mean, like I said, I have a couple of airbrushes set up with the quick connects and stuff like that. I do all of my priming with them and stuff, and then I do highlighting and things to an extent, but I'm not nearly on Eric's level with using them overly. It's more of a new thing for me just because I felt like the cans always gave me a really crappy thick spray that would take away detail. So I switched to airbrushes just primarily for priming and those things.
And I own one airbrush, but I rarely use it, mostly because I'm not great. So I end up like, say I'm going to base coat something, and I get halfway through the base coat and I clog it. And then I have a sonic cleaner. I'm trying to clean the needle, and I only own one needle. And then I forget how to put it back together because I've only ever taken it apart like twice in my entire life. So, so it's just a big hat. Like, and then I'll just go grab the rattle can and the paintbrushes, and it is something I can definitely see the benefits of it if you're skilled in it, but I'm not. So I default back to brushing a cup of water.
Yeah. I mean, airbrushing can save a ton of time, but my go-to thing is, yes, it saves time, but with that time you're saving, you should put back into the model as well with your highlights, your inks, your washes, your glazes. It all, it's more beneficial to you instead of just going, hey, look, I can highlight, I can airbrush, I can blend stuff together, but making it actually pop and making it look real or what you're going for. So an organic model should look organic. It should look like it's kind of alive and not cartoonish. And I mean, some of the more futuristic metal models, they could probably look to be a little cartoonish. It's okay to do that. It's just depending on what the look you're going for.
So I know contrast paints. So I use them as kind of an initial, and then I'll highlight up on depending on what I'm using. So like I'm painting like these Zangors, and their flesh is red. I didn't have to go back over and do that again because the highlighting came out real nice even with that. But with the armor, I had to go back over and detail. Now that's changed the way that my process is for hand painting because I do all hand painting. Have you used the contrast paints, and how do they impacted airbrushing at all, or does it make a difference to you?
I have used the contrast paints. I like them. They're not my normal go-to thing. They do blow through the airbrush relatively well. The main problem is to me, I like to turn those into glazes. So I end up adding more water to them, thinning them down a lot more, and I use them as a blending mechanic more than a painting. I have used them for skin. I think their skin tone colors are really sharp. Their skeletal horde is great for skin if you're going for a generic Caucasian look. Hasn't changed me very much. Not really, because I don't use them often enough. But yeah, I mean, there's a place for them definitely in airbrushing even as well.
Now, how do you know which ones? Because so I've heard a lot of different comments or complaints about them. My main, I guess, if I have an issue with the contrast paints, is that when I pick up a high, what is the glazes, I know how a glaze performs. When I pick up a shade, I know how that performs. But when I pick up a contrast, I don't know how each color is going to perform. They all perform a little differently. They either lay down real thick or real thin or whatever. How do you gauge? I'm sure you do a lot of test
I play
paints with them.
Yeah, I normally play around a lot with test or painting on sprue. I've got corkboard that I'll spray colors on just to see how the transitions between colors work, and then whether or not adding glazes to it is how it'll change it. So if I'm working on a new project, I'll put out a giant square, basically, airbrush the same colors, and then I'll put different things on each portion of it to see which one I like the most. That way I'm getting more options, and that way I'm not limiting my ability in my choices.
So a question just came in, and it kind of pertained to that from chat, and it's how often do you mask when you're going to use airbrush? Do you just paint different areas and your airbrush is fine enough that you don't have to worry about it? Or like in that armor piece you showed where it was like split between orange and yellow, do you mask half of it
I,
off and then?
I would mask that. Yeah, I mask anytime where there's colors are going to overlap or you're going to have a potential spraying over or having any kind of overspray. I'll mask, and I use different types of masking. I'll use your standard Scotch tape or your blue tape. Um, I use the stuff called Army or excuse me, Art tape. It comes in different sizes. They're little rolls of tape. And I've got ones that's a 16th of an inch all the way up to half inch, quarter inch. So I use those to do my chevrons with. Uh, so your actual chevrons are hazard stripes.
Here, pull that back. Let me see the whole thing all together. Now that's a
I don't
finished
know.
night.
This is an almost finished night. The blurriness on the background's killing it.
You can turn it off real quick. And
I
also,
think that's
Brandon,
what
read
I'm
your
gonna
damn
have to do.
messages.
Oh, my bad. I'll throw on messages. My bad.
Unblur. There we
It's
go.
fine.
There we go. So yeah, it's got the chevrons on it. Your tan did the heating effect on all the guns. Uh, I prefer not to do the full march of colors, is what it's called. So it goes from like a light yellow to orange to red to purple to blue. I don't really think that's fully realistic when it comes to shooting a gun all day long. That you're only going to see blue, purple, and black. That's kind of the colors you only see at that point. So that's kind of where I've limited to my march of colors. That's a forging term, just to see how metals heat up and cool back down. But yeah, I guess it all depends on what your want is.
So,
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah,
Do you guys have any other questions for Eric before we move on to the 3D printing?
when I do mask, anytime I mask, I either have to wait 24 hours to do the next color because airbrush paint's so thin and it doesn't adhere unless it's been 24 hours. If I'm in a crunch or don't want to wait that long, I'll put a gloss coat on and let it harden for like a half hour, and then I can tape over it. You're not going to peel any paints up. That's the main problem. That's the main issue with airbrushing, is not giving it time to cure.
Okay.
And otherwise you'll peel it back up. So, and wear gloves. Wear gloves. Yeah, your oils in your hand will eat the paint.
All right. Well, that's some good tips. There's a lot to know about airbrushing that I didn't even know, and maybe we'll cover it some more in future sessions. But I think we're going to take a small break, and then we'll move on to Dan kind of going over 3D printing. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you want to continue watching more content. But if you're watching it here with us, we're just going to move on to the next thing.
But we will take a short break. Between Dan and I, we're gonna try and set up some screens real quick for the next
Okay.
stuff. So maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Other than that, we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Okay. Do you see that screen